The suitcase was black, expensive, and impeccably packed. I watched Jason's hands, those familiar hands with the slight scar on the knuckle of his right thumb, smooth down the lapel of a navy blue suit jacket before he zipped the bag shut. The sound was final, a period at the end of a very short, very bland sentence. Flights at 8.15, he said, not looking at me. He glanced at his watch, a titanium thing he'd bought himself for his last birthday. Should beat the worst of the traffic if I leave now. The Anderson account? I asked, leaning against the door frame of our bedroom. My bedroom. The bedroom. It felt too large lately. A stage set for a play that had long since ended its run. Schmidt is handling the prelims. I'm just there to smile, shake hands, and close the deal. 3 days. In and out. He finally looked up, and his gaze was what I'd come to think of as his boardroom blued, polite, focused, utterly devoid of the warmth that used to crinkle the corners of his eyes when he looked at me. You'll be okay with the kids? It was the question you asked a neighbor, not your wife of 12 years. Will you be okay to water the ficus? We have a routine. Jason, we'll manage. My voice was calm, a practiced neutral. I'd gotten good at it. The alternative was screaming. And screaming required an energy I'd allocated elsewhere. To my studio, to Ava's art classes, to Leo's bafflingly advanced math homework. Right. Of course. He hefted the suitcase. I'll call when I land. Sure. He brushed past me, the faint scent of his sandalwood cologne hanging in the air. I didn't follow him downstairs. I heard the murmured, "Bye, guys," from the foyer, and the monosyllabic, distracted responses from Ava and Leo in the living room. The front door clicked shut. A moment later, the purr of his German sedan faded down the hill. The house in Pacific Heights, our beautiful, Pinterest-perfect prison, settled into a deeper silence. I walked downstairs. Ava was curled in the window seat, a sketchpad balanced on her knees, her pencil moving in swift, sure strokes. Leo was a lump on the sofa, his eyes glued to his tablet, fingers flying. He forgot, Leo said, without looking up. Forgot what, sweetie? My science exhibition is Thursday. Mr. Hendricks is submitting the rocket design to the regional competition. He told Dad twice at dinner last week. A pang, sharp and familiar, hit me just below the sternum. He's got a lot on his mind with this Chicago trip. He always has a lot on his mind, Ava said, her voice quiet but clear. She didn't look up from her drawing, except when it's golf, or that conference in Cabo last year. Ava, it's fine, Mom. She finally glanced at me, and in her 10-year-old eyes I saw a wisdom that was both a gift and a curse. We're used to it. That was the second dagger to the heart in under 10 minutes. The first was Jason's effortless departure. This one, the calm resignation of my children, was infinitely sharper. I wanted to argue, to list the times Jason had been present, but the list felt pathetically short. The examples weak and outdated. The last school play he'd attended, he'd spent on his phone. The father-son camping trip with Leo's scout troop, a client emergency. That had magically resolved itself by Monday morning. My phone buzzed on the kitchen island. Diane Vance, my mother-in-law. A chill that had nothing to do with the San Francisco fog crept up my spine. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but the habit of duty, of maintaining the facade, was too strong. Diane. Hi, Elara, darling. Her voice was like oversteeped tea, cloying and bitter at once. I hope we're not catching you at a bad time. We meant her and Robert. It was always we. No, it's fine. The kids are here. Jason just left for the airport. Oh, yes, the Chicago trip. So important for his career. She paused, and I could picture her, perfectly coiffed in her Marin County sitting room, calculating her next move. Well, that's actually why we're calling. Robert and I have had the most marvelous idea. We've decided to take the girls on a little adventure, A last-minute tour of Italy, Tuscany, Rome, the Amalfi Coast. We leave tomorrow. The chill solidified into a block of ice in my gut. Tomorrow? That's sudden. Spontaneity is the spice of life. Dear. And with Jason away, we thought, why not? Maya just finished her finals, and Chloe needed a break from that dreadful intern project. It's all booked. 2 glorious weeks. The pieces, jagged and wrong, tried to fit together in my head. Jason away, his entire family at his parents', his 2 younger sisters who still lived at home despite being in their mid-20s, suddenly jetting off to Europe. The timing was a coincidence, so loud it screamed. That sounds wonderful for you all, I said, my voice miraculously even. Send postcards. Of course. We'll be a bit off the grid, exploring the hill towns. You know how it is. But we'll call when we can. Give our love to the children. We hung up. I stared at the phone. Off the grid. Exploring hill towns. Since when did Robert and Diane Vance, who planned their grocery lists a week in advance and considered a trip to Napa Valley Rustic, do anything so impulsive? Since when did they go off the grid? Grandma, Ava asked, coming into the kitchen for an apple. They're going to Italy. For 2 weeks. Ava took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. With Aunt Maya and Aunt Chloe? Yes. Huh. She didn't say anything else, but the single syllable was loaded. She wandered back to her window seat. I pushed the feeling down, the nauseating swirl of suspicion. I was being paranoid. Jason and I had our distance. Yes, but this? A coordinated family exodus? It was absurd. I was Alara Sterling Vance. I ran a successful interior design firm. I had a beautiful home, 2 brilliant children. I was not a woman whose husband conspired with his family behind her back. That was the plot of a Lifetime movie. Not my life. I made dinner. Pasta. The kids ate. Leo tried to explain his rocket design, his words tumbling over each other in his excitement. I listened. I praised. I asked questions. The normalcy of it was a blanket I pulled tight around myself. After bedtime stories, the ritual Jason had abandoned years ago. Citing fatigue, I sat at my desk in the home office. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The silence had teeth tonight. Italy. Chicago. 2 weeks. A simple, damning thought. Check the credit card. I logged into our shared account. The one for household expenses. The one Jason used for whatever. I scrolled. Groceries. Gas. A charge from a nice restaurant downtown 2 weeks ago at a client dinner. He'd said. Then I saw it. A charge. Just yesterday. $450. From Bellissima Florals. In Carmel. Carmel by the Sea. A 5-hour drive south. Not Chicago. My heart started a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. A client in Carmel? He'd never mentioned it. I opened a new tab. My fingers were cold on the keyboard. I typed, Willow Creek Sanctuary Carmel. The website loaded. Soft and luxurious. Muted tones. Pictures of serene women in luxurious robes. Of sleek, modern suites with ocean views. A premier destination for maternity, birthing, and postpartum care. Discretion and unparalleled service for the discerning family. A birthing center. The ice in my gut melted, flooding my system with a fear so acute I thought I might be sick. No, it couldn't be. It was a coincidence. A client's wife, a business associate. There was an explanation, but the charge was on our card. The card that paid for our dry cleaning, our groceries, not his corporate Amex. I needed air. I needed to not be in this room. I walked down the hall, pushing open the door to Leo's room. The soft glow of his nightlight, a NASA logo, illuminated his face. He was asleep, his tablet charging on the nightstand. My serious, brilliant boy who asked questions about quantum physics and noticed when his father forgot. Next, Ava's room. She was still awake, reading under the covers with a book light. Can't sleep? I whispered, sitting on the edge of her bed, Thinking, she said, marking her page and closing the book. The evolution of Calpurnia Tate. Of course. About what? She looked at me, and in the dim light, she looked older than 10. Do you think Dad likes us? The question, so blunt, so quiet, stole the breath from my lungs. Ava, of course he loves you. You're his children. That's not what I asked, she said, with a patience that broke me. I asked if he liked Hesus. He doesn't listen to Leo talk about rockets. He told me my portrait of you was unexpected, and then changed the subject. He missed my last 3 recitals. He forgot Leo's birthday until you texted him at noon. She listed the facts without malice, as if cataloging data for a science project. Grandma Diane always asks him about work first. Grandpa Robert talks to him about stocks. They send Leo the same geography quiz game every Christmas. Even though he told them he programs his own games now. They send me pink, glittery stuff. I hate glitter. Each statement was a tiny, precise cut. She was right. Every word was true. The evidence had been piling up for years. And I, the master of creating beautiful, functional spaces, had expertly arranged furniture over the cracks in the foundation. Oh, honey, I reached for her, and she let me hug her, her small body stiff at first, then melting against me. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. She mumbled into my shoulder. We know you love us. We notice things. We notice things, the simple, devastating truth from the mouth of my child. They noticed the absences, the indifference, the glittery gifts that showed no one was paying attention. They noticed the flawless facade, and they saw the hollow man living behind it. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and walked back to the office on legs that felt like wood. The beautiful, terrible clarity that Ava's words had given me cut through the fog of doubt. This wasn't paranoia. This was a pattern of neglect toward us, and a pattern of something else. Something that involved secret flower deliveries to a $20,000 a week birthing center 2 hours away, timed with a suspicious family trip to a different continent. I sat back down at the computer. The screen glowed in the dark room. I opened a new browser window. My fingers, now steady with a cold, focused purpose, began to type. San Francisco, private investigator discreet infidelity. The search results for private investigators in San Francisco were a mosaic of cliché and menace. Glinting magnifying glasses, silhouettes in trench coats, promises to catch a cheating spouse. It felt sordid. Beneath me, a week ago, I would have scoffed and closed the browser. Now, I scrolled with a clinical detachment, as if selecting a subcontractor for a job, because that's what this was, a job, the most important one in my life. I eliminated the ones with flashy graphics and promises of 24/7 surveillance packages. Too dramatic, too unreliable. My eyes landed on a minimalist website. Jensen Associates, discreet inquiries, licensed, former SFPD. The contact was a simple number and a P.O. box. It spoke of competence, not theatrics. I wrote the number on a fresh notepad, the digits stark against the cream paper. The next morning, after dropping Ava and Leo at Fairhaven Academy, I drove not to my studio in Jackson Square, but to a quiet coffee shop in the Richmond district. I made the call from a corner table, my back to the wall. A man's voice answered on the second ring. Jensen, my name is Alara Vance. I was given your contact. I believe I may require your professional services. My voice was steady, the same one I used to negotiate with difficult vendors. There was a brief pause. Given by who? I found you online. Your website mentioned discretion. It does. What's the nature of the inquiry? Ms. Vance? I need to verify the whereabouts of my husband. He claims to be on a business trip. I have reason to believe that is not the case. The words felt both alien and terrifyingly simple to say out loud. Infidelity case? Potentially, but it's more systemic than that. His entire family has also given a dubious reason for an absence. The timing is suspect. I kept my sentences short. Factual. I need confirmation. Evidence. If it's there. Understood. I'll need details. Names. Locations. Dates. Known vehicles. A recent photo. A retainer. We can meet to discuss. My office is in the financial district, but I can come to you if privacy is a concern. Your office is fine. Today, 11 a.m. I wasn't asking. Another pause. I could almost hear him recalibrating. I wasn't a hysterical wife. I was a client with a problem to solve. 11 works. Address is on the site. Suite 604. Milo Jensen's office was as unassuming as his website. A small, clean room with a view of an air shaft, a functional desk, 2 chairs, and a filing cabinet. He was in his late 40s, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and the solid, watchful build of a man who'd spent years on patrol. He wore a button-down with the sleeves rolled up. No tie. He didn't offer small talk. Ms. Vance, have a seat. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. You said on the phone you had details. I placed a manila folder on the desk. Inside was a printed sheet. Jason's full name, date of birth, social security number, a cold violation of trust. Pulling that from our files. His license plate number, a clear headshot from last year's company holiday party. I'd also included the names of Robert, Diane, Maya, and Chloe Vance, and the dates of their supposed Italian tour. I slid the folder across to him. He left yesterday morning for what he said was a 3-day meeting in Chicago. O'Hare Hilton. His family called me yesterday afternoon to say they were leaving today for a 2-week tour of Italy. I have reason to doubt both stories. Jensen opened the folder, scanned the page. His expression gave nothing away. Reason being? A credit card charge on our joint card. $450 to a florist in Carmel by the Sea. Dated yesterday. I looked up the florist. They do high-end arrangements. I also discovered the name of a facility in Carmel. The Willow Creek Sanctuary. It's a luxury maternity and postpartum center. I saw the slightest flicker in his eyes. Understanding. He'd heard of it, or places like it. You think he's there, with a pregnant woman. I think it's a possibility I need to eliminate, or confirm. My hands were clasped in my lap, knuckles white. I forced them to relax. I also want to verify his family's travel. If they're not in Italy, I need to know where they are. Jensen leaned back, tapping a pen against the desk. Carmel's a small town. If he's at a place like Willow Creek, it won't be hard to confirm. The family, if they use their passports, I can find out. If they didn't, and they're in the country, that narrows the field. The retainer is $5,000, billed against my hourly. I'll need a check or bank transfer to start. I'll report what I find. When I find it, I don't sugarcoat. You ready for that? I'm not paying for sugarcoating. Mr. Jensen, I'm paying for the truth. He gave a single, curt nod. All right, I'll get started. I'll need access to that credit card statement. A digital copy is fine. Anything else you can think of. Recent changes in behavior. New passwords. Secretive phone calls. I thought of the distance that had grown over the last 18 months. A glacial drift I'd blamed on work stress. The new passcode on his phone. The way he'd started taking his laptop into the bathroom to catch up on emails. The vague work dinners that had become more frequent. I'd told myself it was a phase, a mid-career slump. I listed it all for Jensen. My tone flat, detached. When I left his office, 20 minutes later, the first half of the retainer transferred from an account Jason had no access to. I felt a strange emptiness. I had set something in motion. There was no taking it back. That evening, after a dinner where I pushed salmon and asparagus around my plate, I retreated to the home office again. Jensen's questions had ignited anew. More pragmatic fear. The financial fear. If Jason was capable of this lie, what else was he capable of? I logged into our main joint banking portal, the one for savings and the mortgage. Everything looked normal. The mortgage payment was on auto pay. The savings account, where we parked bonus money and held our emergency fund, showed a healthy, familiar balance. Then I looked at the transaction history for the last 6 months. Small, recurring transfers. $2.000 here. $1.500 there. Never more than $3.000 at a time. An amount just under the threshold that would trigger an internal alert at the bank. Or so I'd read. They were marked as transfers to an account with a name I didn't recognize. Pacific Crest Holdings, LLC. The memos simply said investment. I knew all our investments. Our portfolio manager was an old family friend of the Sterlings. Pacific Crest Holdings was not on any statement I'd ever seen. A cold tremor, different from the emotional shock, ran through me. This was calculated. This was stealth. I opened a new tab and did a quick business registry search for California. Pacific Crest Holdings, LLC, registered agent. A legal services firm in Delaware. A shell company, utterly opaque. He was moving money. Our money. The rage that hit me then was pure and white hot. It wasn't the heartbroken, jealous rage of a betrayed wife. It was the furious, protective rage of a provider, a mother, a woman who had built her own success and now saw someone trying to secretly dismantle the foundation of her children's security. This wasn't just about another woman. This was about theft. Slow, deliberate theft. I took screenshots. I saved PDFs of the statements. I compiled them in a secure folder labeled Tax Documents 2025. My hands didn't shake. The fear had burned away, leaving a core of hardened resolve. The next few days were an exercise in surreal normalcy. I took the kids to school. I went to meetings with clients, discussing fabric swatches and tile samples. I smiled. I nodded. Inside, I was a vault, holding the seething knowledge and the terrifying uncertainty. Jensen called on the third day, mid-morning. Ms. Vance, can you talk? I'm in my car. Go ahead. I pulled over onto a quiet side street in Pacific Heights. It's confirmed. Your husband never boarded a flight to Chicago. His car, the black BMW with the plate you provided, is parked in a long-term lot at the San Jose airport. He flew from San Jose to Monterey yesterday morning. A one-way ticket, purchased with a different credit card, point one in his name, but not linked to any of the joint accounts you know about. The air left my lungs. San Jose. Smarter. Less likely I'd check. Closer to Carmel. And his family? I managed to ask. No passport activity for any of them in the last 6 months. No airline tickets purchased in their names for travel to Europe. I've got a contact at the DMV. Robert Vance's Cadillac Escalade passed through the toll plaza on Highway 1 near Monterey 2 days ago. Same time frame. They're all down there. The confirmation was a physical blow. The coordinated lie was real. And the OI facility? Willow Creek Sanctuary. It's a gated compound. But I've confirmed a reservation under the name Vance for a 2-week stay. Premium suite. Paid in full via wire transfer from an account I'm still tracing. A woman matching the description of your sister-in-law. Maya Vance was seen entering the grounds earlier today. Security is tight, but not impenetrable. Do you want visual confirmation? Did I? The question hung in the silent car. Did I need to see the knife to know I was bleeding? Yes, I needed to see it. I needed to brand the image onto my mind so I would never, ever doubt the necessity of what came next. Yes, I said, my voice a stranger's. I need to see. It'll take a day, maybe 2. I'll be in touch. He paused. Ms. Vance. I'm sorry. Don't be. I said, the ice back in my veins. You're just confirming what's already there. Send me the invoice for the next portion. And find out where that wire transfer came from. I ended the call and sat there, staring at the elegant, dormant facade of a mansion across the street. My whole life had been about creating beautiful, perfect surfaces. I was an expert at it, and I had missed the rot festering just beneath my own. That night, I made the kids' favorite breakfast for dinner. Chocolate chip pancakes. We ate at the kitchen island. Leo was animated, explaining a breakthrough in his rocket's guidance system code. And if I adjust this parameter, it should stabilize the descent phase, even with crosswinds, he said, syrup dotting his chin. That's incredible. Leo, I'm so proud of you. My praise was genuine, but it felt like it was coming from a long tunnel. Ava, perceptive as always, watched me over her glass of milk. You're quiet, Mom. Long day. Sweetie, just tired. Is it Dad? Leo asked, his enthusiasm dimming. Is he coming back soon? The question, so innocent, was the final crack, the facade I'd maintained for them, for myself, for the world, crumbled. I put my fork down. I looked at their faces. They're beautiful, intelligent, trusting faces. They deserve truth, not the ugly, adult truth in its entirety, but a version of it they could understand. They'd already seen so much. No, I said softly. He's not coming back soon. And things are going to change. They both went still. Ava set her glass down. Leo's brow furrowed. What kind of change? Ava asked. I chose my words with more care than I'd ever chosen a paint color or a piece of furniture. Your father has not been honest with us. He's made some very bad choices, choices that hurt our family. I've been looking into some things, and I've found out that he's starting another family with someone else. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. I waited for tears, for confusion, for anger. Leo blinked. You mean he has a girlfriend? Yes. Leo, more than that. She's going to have a baby. He processed this, his young mind connecting dots. Is that why he's never here? And why he always seems annoyed with us? The blunt, child's logic of it was a sledgehammer. Yes, I think that's a big part of it. Ava's face had hardened. It wasn't the look of a heartbroken child. It was the look of a judge passing sentence. He's been stealing from us, too, hasn't he? I heard you on the phone with the bank yesterday. You were talking about transfers. My sharp, financially savvy girl. I shouldn't have been surprised. He's been moving money. Yes, money that belongs to all of us. She nodded, as if a puzzle had finally clicked into place. I knew it. I saw a letter from a bank once. On his desk. It wasn't from your bank. It had a different logo. I looked it up. It was from a bank in Nevada. I stared at her. When was this? Ava? Months ago. Last fall. She shrugged. A heartbreakingly adult gesture. I didn't say anything because, I don't know. I thought it was a secret work thing, but it felt weird. I reached across the island and took both their hands. Listen to me. This is the most important thing. None of this is your fault. Do you understand me? Not one bit. Your father's choices are his. They are about him, not about you. You are brilliant, wonderful, and you are loved by me, unconditionally and forever. Leo's eyes were wide. What's going to happen? We're going to protect ourselves, I said, and the words felt like a vow. We're going to be a team. The three of us. It might be hard for a while. There might be changes, but we will be okay. More than okay. I promise you. Ava squeezed my hand. We're with you, Mom. We don't need him. Leo, after a moment, nodded fiercely. Yeah, Team Sterling. He used my maiden name, the one on my studio door, the name he associated with my work, my strength. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were not tears of weakness. They were an overflow of a ferocious, terrifying love. Team Sterling. I echoed. 2 days later, Milo Jensen called again. Ms. Vance, I have the visual confirmation you requested. It's conclusive. I can send you a secure link. You'll need to be sitting down. Send it, I said. I was in my office at home. The door was locked. The children were at school. On my laptop, I clicked the link. It led to an encrypted, password-protected video player. The video was shaky, shot from a distance with a powerful lens, through the window of a ground-floor suite. The quality was clear enough. The room was bright, airy, decorated in the tasteful, bland luxury of the Willow Creek website. And there they were, Jason, in a polo shirt and khakis, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. He was smiling, a real smile, not the tight, perfunctory one he gave us. He was standing behind a large, plush armchair. In the chair sat a young woman. She was blonde, pretty in a conventional way, probably in her late 20s, very pregnant. She wore a silk robe. Her hands rested on the pronounced curve of her belly, and surrounding them, like a grotesque parody of a happy family, were Robert, Diane, Maya, and Chloe. Diane was arranging a massive bouquet of flowers in a vase on a side table. The $450 bouquet. No doubt, she was beaming. Robert stood with a hand on Jason's shoulder, nodding approvingly at the woman's stomach. Maya was pouring what looked like sparkling cider into flutes. Chloe was perched on the arm of the woman's chair, chattering animatedly. Then Jason leaned down. He said something to the woman, his face close to hers. She laughed, reaching up to touch his cheek. He placed his hand over hers on her belly, his expression one of naked, proud tenderness, a look I realized, with a jolt that felt like a cardiac arrest. He had never once given me while I was carrying his children. Not with Ava, not with Leo. Diane Vance turned from the flowers, holding a flute. She raised it. Her voice, though slightly distorted by the distance and the glass, was unmistakably smug, filled with a vicious, triumphant joy. A toast, she said, the words clear as crystal, to my first real grandson. May he have all the blessings this family can give him. The world did not go black. It went white, a silent, screaming, howling white. The video played on, Jason accepting glass, kissing the woman's forehead, his family clustering around them in a circle of exclusion. So complete it had physical weight, but I saw none of it. I saw only those words, hanging in the air of that sunny, hateful room. My first real grandson. Ava, my fierce, artistic Ava. Leo, my brilliant, quiet Leo. They were not real. They were not enough. In the eyes of the people I had called family for over a decade, my children were practice runs, drafts, and this unborn boy, the product of my husband's betrayal, was the prized first edition. The video ended. The screen went dark, reflecting my own face back at me. Pale, rigid, utterly still. I closed the laptop. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not break anything. I picked up my phone. My fingers were steady. I navigated to my contacts and found the number I'd programmed in after my first discreet consultation a year ago, when the cracks were just hairline fractures, and I'd wanted to know my rights. Just in case. I pressed call. It was answered on the first ring. Rebecca Shaw. Rebecca, it's Alara Vance. We need to move. Now. I have everything. My voice was calm, flat, and deadlier than I had ever heard it. He's in Carmel, at the Willow Creek Sanctuary, with her. His entire family is there. They're having a baby, and they're celebrating. There was the briefest of silences on the other end of the line. Then the crisp, uncompromising voice of the best divorce attorney in Northern California replied, "All business. Tell me everything. Don't leave out a single detail. And Alara, don't do anything else. Don't confront him. Don't touch any more joint accounts yet. I'll be at your house in 2 hours. We're going to war." Rebecca Shaw arrived in under 90 minutes. She swept into my Pacific Heights foyer not like a visitor, but like a general taking command of a battlefield. She carried a slim leather briefcase and wore a look of focused intensity that made my own icy calm feel like a prelude. "Alara," she said, her voice a low, clear alto, no platitudes. No, I'm so sorry. She assessed me with a single glance, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Where can we talk? Somewhere the children won't overhear. My office. It's soundproofed. A luxury I'd installed for client calls. The irony was bitter. She followed me in, closed the door softly, and took the chair opposite my desk without being asked. Start from the beginning. Don't editorialize. Just facts, times, dates, evidence. For the next 45 minutes, I did. I spoke in a monotone, laying out the chronology like a prosecutor presenting a timeline. The business trip, the sudden family vacation, the Carmel florist charge, Milo Jensen's findings, the shell company transfers, the video. I pulled up the financial records on my screen, showed her the secure link to the video. I played Diane Vance's toast. My voice didn't waver once. Rebecca watched the video clip, her expression impassive. When it finished, she steepled her fingers. Okay, this is egregious. It's also, from a legal standpoint, a gift, dissipation of marital assets, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a textbook case of marital misconduct that will make any judge in this county see red. The familial conspiracy angle is particularly potent. It shows premeditation and a unified effort to deceive you, which undermines any claim of momentary weakness or mistake. Your goal? The question was so blunt it anchored me. My goals are, in order: 1. Full legal and physical custody of Ava and Leo. He gets supervised visitation only, if that. 2. Complete financial security for myself and my children. I want him to pay. Rebecca, not just child support. I want him to feel the full financial consequence of every decision he's made. 3. I want to liquidate and lock down every asset before he even knows I'm aware. I do not want him having the chance to move another cent to that woman or that shell company. A ghost of a smile, cold and approving, touched her lips. Good. We're aligned. Your instincts are correct. Speed and secrecy are our weapons now. He thinks he has 2 weeks. We have, at most, 10 days before that baby is born, and his focus shifts back here. We will use every hour. First, you will not touch the joint savings account again. It's flagged now. We'll use it as evidence. I'm filing an emergency ex parte motion first thing tomorrow morning to freeze all marital assets and accounts held by either of you, given the evidence of active dissipation. I'll get the temporary restraining order. The judge will also grant me a forensic accounting order. We'll follow the money from Pacific Crest Holdings right back to his mistress's bank account, or his parents', or wherever it's going. She opened her briefcase, pulling out a tablet. Now, your separate property, your design firm, Sterling Interiors. The LLC is solely in your name, correct? Funded with your premarital capital and a loan co-signed by your father? Yes. Good. It's separate, but income during marriage is community property. We'll need to separate the streams, but that's a later problem. For now, we move your liquid assets. How much do you have in personal checking, money market, your own investment accounts, not tied to Jason? I gave her the figures, mentally running through the numbers. A healthy sum, the fruit of a decade of successful, independent work. Today, you will move 80% of that into a new account at a different bank. Tomorrow, you will visit your personal financial advisor, not the one you share with Jason, and move the rest into irrevocable trusts for Ava and Leo. Educational and health expense trusts. Judges look favorably on that. It shows you're prioritizing the children's future, not just looting the marital estate. It also puts that money permanently beyond Jason's reach. Do you have a banker you trust implicitly? Yes, at First Republic. She's handled my family's accounts for years. Call her now. Set an appointment for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Use the word urgent family financial restructuring. She'll understand discretion. Rebecca's fingers flew over her tablet, making notes. The house. It's in both names. Yes. We refinanced 2 years ago. We'll list it immediately. A quick sale is preferable to a buyout in this case. It removes a major asset from the equation and provides you with liquid capital. It also sends a message. Do you have a realtor? Several have begged for the listing for years. Pick the shark, not the friend. Someone who can get a cash offer in under 10 days. Price it to sell. You need to be out, physically and legally. Where will you go? The question of home hit me harder than the legal strategy. I haven't thought that far. Think now. You cannot stay here once the papers are served. It's unsafe and psychologically damaging for you and the children. You need a neutral, secure location, a rental, a corporate apartment, somewhere he doesn't know and cannot access. A thought occurred to me. Ruthless and clean. The Archer Building, downtown. They do furnished. Short-term leases for corporate clients. I did the interiors for the penthouse model unit. The building manager owes me a favor. It's secure. Key card access. 24/7 concierge. He can't get within 50 feet of the lobby. Perfect. Secure it. A month-to-month lease. Use your LLC. Today. She looked up. The children. School. Fairhaven Academy. They're enrolled for the fall. You need to withdraw them. Now. Before he can intervene or cause a scene. Where can they go that is excellent? And far away from his sphere of influence. The answer came instantly. A lifeline I hadn't known I was grasping for. The Sterling Academy. In Connecticut. It was my alma mater. A prestigious, woodsy boarding school that took day students. My father was still on the board. It was 3,000 miles away. My father can pull strings. They have a summer program that transitions into the fall term. It's a fresh start. Rebecca nodded, a hint of respect in her eyes. Do it. Today. Explain it as a sudden, prestigious opportunity. Get the records transferred. We'll frame it as providing stability and continuity of education during a turbulent time, not parental alienation. But we need to move before he can file any countermotions about jurisdiction. She took a deep breath. Now, the hardest part. You have to tell the children, not everything, but enough. They need to be prepared for a rapid relocation. Their cooperation is essential. Are they aware of the situation? I told her about the conversation over pancakes, about Leo's question, Ava's observations. They're quiet, devastating acceptance. Rebecca's stern expression softened, just for a moment. They're smarter than he gave them credit for. That's to your advantage. Be honest. Be calm. Frame it as an adventure, a necessary step to protect your team. They've already chosen their side. Elara, let them help. She stood, gathering her things. My team will draft the filings tonight. You will get a process server and a moving truck. You will pack only what is essential and irreplaceable. Clothes, documents, the children's most precious items. Everything else is just stuff. It can be sold or stored. Your goal in the next 48 hours is to become a ghost in your own life and to set a legal trap that will snap shut around Jason Vance the moment he steps back into the city. Do you understand? Yes. Do you have any doubt? Any hesitation? I looked at the frozen image, still on my laptop screen, Jason's smiling face, his hand on another woman's womb. I thought of the bank transfers, of Diane's venomous toast, of the hollow look in my children's eyes when they spoke of their father, the last flicker of anything resembling pity or love for the man I'd married, shriveled, and died. None. I said, let's go to war. The next 72 hours were a blur of ruthless, efficient action. I became a machine, executing Rebecca's battle plan with a focus that left no room for grief. The calls were made in rapid succession, my voice never betraying the earthquake beneath the surface. Miriam, it's Elara Vance. I need to move a significant sum into a new account. Today. Yes, it's urgent. A family matter. I'll explain in person. 10 o'clock. Dad, I need your help. It's Jason. It's bad. I need the kids into Sterling's summer program and fall term. Immediately. No, I can't explain on the phone. Just trust me. Please, call Dean Whitaker. Use every chip you have. Thank you. I'll call you tonight. Sarah. Elara. Listen. I'm selling the house on Broadway. I need it listed tomorrow. Cash offer. As is. Quick close is the priority. I know it's under market. Just do it. And Sarah, absolute discretion. If anyone calls asking, you never heard from me, my lawyer will send you the specifics. You'll get your full commission. Just move. Mr. Davies, this is Alara Sterling of Sterling Interiors. Regarding the Archer Building penthouse model unit, yes, the one I designed. I need to lease it, furnished, for my LLC, starting immediately, month to month. The utmost privacy is required. I'm glad to hear that. The digital lease is fine. I'll have my lawyer review it. The children were the most critical mission. I sat them down again in the living room, the same room where, days before, they'd confessed their quiet sadness. Now, I saw not sadness, but a watchful readiness. We have to move quickly, I said, dispensing with preamble. Things are going to happen fast. I've enrolled you both in a summer program at the Sterling Academy in Connecticut. It's a wonderful school, with amazing arts and science programs. You'll start in a few weeks. For the fall term, Ava's eyes widened. Connecticut? That's far. It is. It's also safe and beautiful. And it's a place where you can just be kids, where no one knows our situation. Are we running away? Leo asked, his brow furrowed. No, Leo, we're making a strategic retreat, and we're securing our future. Your father and his family, they've made some very bad choices. The legal and financial parts are going to get messy. I don't want you in the middle of that. I want you learning and painting and building rockets. Okay. They exchanged a look. A silent conversation passed between them. Ava nodded slowly. Okay, what do we need to do? My heart cracked and healed itself in the same instant. We need to pack, but we're not taking everything. We're taking what matters. Your favorite clothes. The things you can't live without. Ava, your art supplies and your portfolio. Leo, your computer, your robotics kit, your books. We'll get new furniture, new things, but we take the pieces of you. Can you do that? Can you help me decide what's essential? Leo squared his small shoulders. We're Team Sterling. We can do it. And they did, over the next 2 days. As movers hired by Rebecca's firm came to crate up the bulk of our lives for storage or sale, the three of us worked in a focused, almost peaceful bubble. Ava curated her artwork with a curator's eye, selecting only her best pieces. She carefully took down the portrait of me she'd mentioned, the one Jason had called unexpected. It was beautiful, capturing a moment of laughter he'd never been there to see. She packed her favorite brushes, the set my father had given her. Leo systematically wiped his laptop and tablet, backing up files to an encrypted drive I'd bought. He dismantled his prized, competition-winning rocket, packing the components with meticulous care in foam. He looked at his shelves of trophies and medals, then took only 2 that the first one he'd ever won, and the most recent. The rest are just metal and plastic. Mom, he said, with a shrug that was far too old for him. I packed documents, birth certificates, passports, marriage license, tax returns, the children's medical records. I packed the small, priceless things, the locket with my mother's picture, the children's ultrasound photos, a single album of pictures from before the distance became a chasm. I left behind the large, expensive art Jason and I had bought together, the designer furniture, the symbols of a life that had been a carefully staged illusion. The for sale sign went up on the manicured lawn. My realtor, Sarah, a fierce woman in her 60s, called me within hours. Elara, I've got 3 cash offers, all above asking, even price to move. One is a tech guy who wants to close in 7 days. He's waiving all contingencies. It's the cleanest deal I've ever seen. Do you want to take it? Yes, I said, without hesitation. The house was just a shell. The people who had lived in it were already gone. On the fourth day, we left. We took 2 suitcases each and a few boxes of essentials. The sleek, silent elevator in the Archer building took us to the 40th floor. The penthouse was exactly as I designed it. All cool grays, clean lines, and floor-to-ceiling windows with a breathtaking, impersonal view of the bay and the bridges. It was a beautiful cage, a temporary command center. That night, as the children slept in strange, luxurious beds, I sat at the glass desk in the living room. The city glittered, cold and distant. On my computer screen, I received the final, silent confirmation. The emergency order had been granted. All our joint assets were frozen. The forensic accounting was underway. The petition for dissolution, citing adultery, fraud, and dissipation of assets, was filed. The motion for sole legal and physical custody, supported by a declaration from Milo Jensen detailing Jason's whereabouts and the coordinated family deception, was part of the packet in a locked drawer. I had the keys to a safe deposit box containing the trust documents for Ava and Leo, their enrollment confirmations from Sterling Academy, and the signed lease for this temporary apartment. The trap was set. The legal machinery was primed. Our old life was already being dismantled, box by box, memory by painful memory. I looked at the time. Jason, his parents, his sisters, and his very pregnant mistress were presumably still in Carmel, playing happy family, oblivious. They thought they had time. They thought they had secrecy. They thought I was the oblivious wife, tending the home fires, waiting for her prince to return. They were wrong. The calm was over. The storm was on the horizon, and I had just ensured it would make landfall directly on them. The Vance family returned to San Francisco on a Tuesday afternoon. The weather was a cliché of Northern California perfection. Crystalline blue sky, a sun that was warm but not harsh, a light breeze carrying the scent of eucalyptus and salt from the bay. They drove in Robert's Cadillac Escalade, the one Milo Jensen had tracked to Carmel. The mood inside the vehicle was one of smug, exhausted contentment. Jason, riding shotgun, felt the pleasant fatigue of the last 2 weeks, the tension of the secret, the constant performance for Sienna's benefit, the hushed financial strategizing with his father. IT had been a strain, but it was done. Sienna was settled at Willow Creek, pampered and happy, carrying his son, his heir. The word gave him a visceral thrill his daughter's art shows and his son's science projects never had. Diane and Robert had doted on Sienna. His sisters had played the role of eager aunts-to-be perfectly. It had been a glimpse of the future, a future where he was the patriarch of a real family, not the sullen appendage to Alara's chilly, competent world. You should call her, Robert said from the driver's seat, his eyes on the road as they navigated the familiar streets of Pacific Heights. Get ahead of it. Tell her the Chicago trip ran long. Maybe an extra day or 2. Ease back in. He doesn't need to ease. Diane sniffed, applying a fresh coat of lipstick in the visor mirror. He's the man of the house. He's been working. She should be grateful for the stability he provides. Besides, she's probably knee-deep in some fabric swatch crisis. She won't even notice he's been gone. Jason felt a twinge of unease. Alara always noticed. Her noticing was quiet, a raised eyebrow, a perfectly timed question. But the 2-week buffer, he reasoned, would have dulled the sharpest edges of her perception. He'd texted her a few bland, non-committal messages, meetings running long. All good. Give the kids a hug. She'd replied with single words. Okay, sure. But he'd chalked it up to her being busy. He hadn't called. The sound of her calm, measured voice felt like a risk. I'll handle it, Jason said, his tone brooking no argument. Once we're settled, I need a shower and a real meal that isn't room service quinoa. We're ordering in from Chez Philippe, Maya announced from the back seat, scrolling on her phone. I'm starving. That sanctuary food was all kale and steamed fish. I need a burger. Language. Maya. Diane chided absently. We'll have a lovely family dinner. Maybe Alara will have made something. The idea was clearly an afterthought. They pulled up to the grand, shingled colonial on Broadway. The house stood as it always had, impeccably landscaped. Silent, a monument to Alara's taste and their combined, though increasingly strained, success. Jason felt a wave of proprietary satisfaction. Soon, he wouldn't need to tread carefully here. Soon, he'd be able to make his own plans for this asset. A sale, perhaps, a clean split, a nest egg for his new beginning. He grabbed his suitcase from the back, the same black bag he'd left with, the others piled out, stretching limbs stiff from the drive. Chloe fumbled for her keys to her own apartment nearby. See you guys tomorrow. I need to sleep for a year. Jason walked up the familiar flagstone path, digging in his pocket for his keys. He inserted the key into the deadbolt. It didn't turn. He frowned, jiggled it. Nothing. The mechanism felt different. Solid, unyielding. What's the holdup? Honey? Diane called. Waiting on the path with Robert. Key stuck, Jason muttered, trying the knob. Locked. He tried his other key, the one for the handle. It turned, but the door didn't budge. The deadbolt was engaged from the inside. A cold finger traced his spine. That's weird. Did you forget the code for the smart lock? Robert asked, a note of impatience creeping in. The house had a keypad entry, but they rarely used it. Jason shook his head, moving to the keypad beside the door. He punched in the 4-digit code. Ava's birthday. The light blinked red. Error. He tried again, more deliberately. Red. Error. Let me try, Maya said, nudging him aside. She tried her own code. One Alara had set for her years ago. Error. The first real flutter of panic, thin and sharp, started in Jason's gut. He pulled out his phone and called Alara. It went straight to a generic voicemail greeting. You've reached Alara Sterling of Sterling Interiors. Please leave a message, not her personal greeting. The business one. She's not answering. Goes straight to voicemail. Try the house phone, Robert suggested, his jovial mood fading. Jason peered through the narrow glass panels, flanking the door. The foyer was dark. The usual stack of mail wasn't on the console table. The house had a still, hollow emptiness that screamed of absence. Something's wrong. Don't be dramatic, Diane said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. She stepped closer to the front window, cupping her hands around her eyes to peer into the living room. The furniture, it's all there, but it looks different, barer. It was then that Jason noticed it, what he hadn't seen in his focus on the door. A small, discreet sign, staked neatly into the pristine lawn near the sidewalk. It wasn't large. It was sleek, modern, with a broker's logo he recognized from countless neighborhood listings. For sale. The words were a physical blow to his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a soft whoosh. No, he breathed. He stumbled back, his suitcase dropping to the path with a thud. No, no, no. Jason? Robert's voice was sharp. What is it? The house. Jason choked out, pointing a shaking finger. It's for sale. A collective silence fell, thick and disbelieving. They all turned to stare at the sign, a piece of plastic and metal that appended their entire reality. That's impossible, Diane whispered. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Without talking to you. A corrosive, all-consuming fear began to replace the panic. Alara could. The house was in both their names. But if she'd gotten some kind of order. His mind, trained in finance, began racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. The frozen assets, the forensic accounting, the legal trap snapping shut. Call her studio, Robert barked, taking command. Now, Jason's fingers fumbled over the screen. He found the number for Sterling Interiors. A receptionist answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful and professional. Sterling Interiors. How may I direct your call? Elara Vance. It's her husband. It's an emergency. A brief pause. I'm sorry, Mr. Vance. Ms. Sterling Vance is unavailable. Where is she? Put her on. Or tell me where she's gone. This is about my children. Another pause. Colder this time. Ms. Sterling Vance is unavailable. If you have a matter regarding the children, I've been instructed to direct you to her legal counsel. Would you like that contact information? Legal counsel. The phrase was a bucket of ice water. Her legal counsel. Not their counsel. Hers. Who? Jason managed to get out, his voice a strangled whisper. One moment. Please. He heard the clicking of a keyboard. You may contact Rebecca Shaw, of Shaw, Goldstein Lee. Her office will be able to assist you. The receptionist recited a number in the financial district. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Jason hung up. He looked at his parents, at his sisters, their faces pale masks of dawning horror. She's lawyered up. Rebecca Shaw, Robert Vance, who knew the names of every powerful attorney in the city, went ashen. Rebecca Shaw, the divorce attorney, the pit bull? He swore. A low, vicious curse. What in God's name have you done? Jason, what did you do? I didn't do anything. She's overreacting. She must have found out about something. And she's gone crazy, even to his own ears. The protest sounded weak. Pathetic. Found out about what? Jason? Maya asked, her eyes wide. About Sienna? How? We were so careful. I don't know. Jason roared, his fear turning to anger. But she can't just sell my house. She can't just take my kids. Her kids, too, Chloe said quietly, the first to voice the uncomfortable truth. And it's her house, too. And if she's hired Rebecca Shaw, the implications hung in the perfect afternoon air. Ugly and terrifying. They spent the next hour in a futile, escalating panic. Jason called Elara's cell a dozen more times. Straight to voicemail. He drove to her studio in Jackson Square. The receptionist, a young man with a polite, impenetrable smile, informed him that Ms. Sterling Vance was in meetings off-site indefinitely. He called the kids' school, Fairhaven Academy. The headmistress's assistant, after a long hold, came back on the line. I'm sorry, Mr. Vance. Ava and Leo Vance are no longer enrolled at Fairhaven. Their records have been transferred at their mother's request. We're not at liberty to disclose the new institution. At her request? I'm their father. I have a right to know. I'm sorry, sir. You'll need to take that up with Ms. Vance or her legal representative. Have a good day. He stood on the sidewalk outside the imposing brick school, the world tilting on its axis. Gone. They were gone. The house, the children, his wife, all gone. In 2 weeks. Defeated, shell-shocked. They regrouped at Robert and Diane's house in Seacliff. The grand, traditional home felt like a mausoleum. No one mentioned Chez Philippe. Diane made tea no one drank. They sat in the opulent living room, the silence broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock. We need a lawyer, Robert said finally, his voice gravelly. We need the best goddamn divorce lawyer in the city. Someone who can go toe-to-toe with Shaw. Greg, Jason said, the name surfacing from the fog of his panic. Greg Hendricks. He handled the partnership agreement for the firm. He's good. Call him, Robert ordered. Jason called. Greg Hendricks, a corporate attorney out of his depth in family law, but loyal to a paying account, agreed to see them first thing in the morning. The night was long and sleepless. Jason lay in his old childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, 1,000 scenarios playing out in his head, each ending with him losing everything. The next morning, they arrived at Greg's offices in the Embarcadero Center, a jittery, sleep-deprived pack. Greg, a balding man in his 50s with a perpetually worried expression, listened as Jason spilled out a sanitized version of events, a marital rough patch, a connection with another woman who was now pregnant, his family's attempt to be supportive, and his wife's inexplicable, drastic overreaction. She's taken the kids. Greg, she's sold the house out from under me. She's frozen the accounts. You have to do something. Greg steepled his fingers, his frown deepening. Jason, if she's retained Rebecca Shaw, and she's already taken steps of this magnitude, she's not reacting to the pregnancy. She's reacting to evidence. How much did she know? How much could she prove? I don't know. Nothing. We were careful. The money. Jason. Robert interjected, his voice hard. The transfers to the LLC. For Sienna's expenses. The birthing center. Could she have found those? Jason's blood ran cold. The joint savings account. He'd been so careful to use the one she rarely checked. The one for property taxes and insurance. But she was meticulous. Had she checked? Had Jensen found it? Before he could answer, Greg's assistant opened the door, her face pale. Mr. Hendricks, there's a process server here for Mr. Jason Vance, a Mr. Robert Vance, and a Mrs. Diane Vance, and for a Ms. Maya Vance and a Ms. Chloe Vance. He says he needs to deliver the documents in person. Time seemed to slow, then crystallize. The five of them stared as a uniformed man entered, holding a thick, intimidating stack of legal envelopes. He was impersonal, professional. Jason Vance? That's me, Jason said, his voice barely audible. The man handed him a heavy envelope. You've been served. He then handed envelopes to Robert, Diane, Maya, and Chloe in turn. You've all been served. Have a good day. He turned and left, the door clicking shut behind him with a sound of terrible finality. For a moment, no one moved. They just stared at the creamy, thick packets in their hands, their names typed neatly on the front. The weight of the paper was immense. Jason's fingers trembled as he tore his open. The first page, in stark, brutal black type, made the room swim. Superior Court of California, County of San Francisco, petition for dissolution of marriage. Case no. Redacted. Ilaris Sterling Vance. Petitioner versus Jason Michael Vance. Respondent. He skimmed, his heart hammering against his ribs. The language was dry, legal, and utterly devastating. He saw the words. Irreconcilable differences. Then, adultery, fraudulent concealment, intentional dissipation of marital assets, constructive desertion. He flipped the page. The prayer for relief section demanded sole legal and physical custody of the minor children, child support pursuant to guideline calculations, spousal support, 100% of the community estate, attorney's fees, a permanent restraining order freezing all accounts held singly or jointly by the parties, a forensic accounting of all financial records. Attached as Exhibit A was a printout of bank statements with the transfers to Pacific Crest Holdings, LLC circled in red. Exhibit B was a declaration from a Milo Jensen, licensed private investigator. Jason's eyes scanned the dense text, picking out phrases that made his stomach lurch. Tracked subject to Willow Creek Sanctuary in Carmel by the Sea, in the company of a pregnant female. Identified as Sienna, last name redacted, accompanied by his parents, Robert and Diane Vance, and sisters, Maya and Chloe Vance, observed displaying intimate affection. Exhibit C made the blood drain completely from his face. It was a series of photographs, grainy but unmistakable, taken through a window. Him, smiling down at Sienna, his hand on her belly, his family gathered around, his mother, holding a flute, caught mid-toast. The caption beneath the photo cited a timestamp and, in a cold, clinical note, audio enhancement confirms subject Diane Vance stating, a toast to my first real grandson. Oh, God, he whispered, sinking into a chair. The pages slithered from his hands, fanning out on the polished floor like dead leaves. Across the room, a choked sob erupted. Diane was clutching her own sheaf of papers, her face a mask of horror and fury. She can't. This is slander, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. What does that even mean? Robert was reading his document, his face turning a mottled purple. She's suing us, personally, for conspiracy to defraud the marital community, for intentional infliction of emotional distress. She's demanding we repay every cent fraudulently transferred and pay punitive damages. He looked at Jason, his eyes blazing with a fear that was rapidly morphing into rage. You idiot. You reckless, stupid idiot. You said she'd never find out. You said it was contained. Maya was crying silently, reading the lines that accused her of participating in a scheme to hide her brother's adultery and the birth of his love child. Chloe looked sick, holding the papers as if they were contaminated. Greg Hendricks had picked up the petition meant for Jason. He skimmed it, his face growing grimmer with each passing second. He let out a long, low whistle. This isn't a divorce petition, Jason. This is a declaration of war. And Rebecca Shaw, she doesn't file this unless she has a smoking gun in every chamber. He tapped the photo of Diane. This is a nuclear bomb. No judge in the world is going to look at this and have an ounce of sympathy for you, or for any of you. He looked at Robert and Diane. She's painted you as co-conspirators, a family-wide effort to deceive and defraud her. The court will eat you alive. What do we do? Jason's voice was a broken thing. All his plans, his visions of a new life with Sienna and his son, crumbled to dust, replaced by the stark reality of these pages. How do we fight this? Greg shook his head slowly, a gesture of profound hopelessness. You don't fight this, not to win. You try to survive it. You try to negotiate a settlement that doesn't leave you bankrupt and seeing your children in a supervised visitation room for 1 hour a month. He pointed a shaking finger at the petition. She wants everything. And with this evidence, a history of you diverting marital funds to your mistress, your family actively celebrating the pregnancy that resulted from your affair, and you demonstrably lying about your whereabouts while your wife believed you were on a business trip? She might just get it. Your only hope is that she's willing to settle to avoid a long trial. But given the speed and brutality of this opening move, he trailed off. The room was silent except for Diane's ragged breathing. The perfect facade of the Vance family, the smug certainty of their secret triumph, lay in ruins around them, shredded by the thick, legal paper they held in their hands. Jason Vance, the man who had planned for a new son, a new life, a quiet transition of wealth and power, finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. He hadn't been dealing with the cool, composed Alara he thought he knew. He had awakened someone else entirely, and she had just served him with the first battle plan, written in a language he understood all too well. Cold, hard, unassailable law. He was not just outmaneuvered. He was already defeated. The only question that remained was how much of his old life would be left for the ashes. The conference room in the financial district was a study in muted power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sprawling, indifferent view of the San Francisco Bay. The table was polished granite, cold and unyielding. The air hummed with silent tension, thick enough to taste. I sat on one side, Rebecca Shaw solid, immovable presence to my right. She wore a charcoal suit, her only jewelry a simple platinum watch. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes were laser-focused, missing nothing. I wore a navy sheath dress, my hair pulled back in a severe but elegant knot. I felt armored. The emotional carnage of the last few weeks had been incinerated, leaving behind a core of hardened resolve. I was not here to feel. I was here to witness. Across the vast expanse of stone sat Jason. He looked diminished. His suit was rumpled, his face pale and shadowed with sleeplessness. The arrogant confidence he'd carried to Carmel was gone, replaced by a twitchy, sullen anxiety. To his left sat his lawyer, Greg Hendricks, who looked profoundly unhappy to be there. Greg's notes were spread in a messy fan before him, a stark contrast to Rebecca's single, closed leather portfolio. The door opened, and a court reporter entered, setting up her machine with quiet efficiency. A reminder, this was not a conversation. It was a deposition, a step in a legal war. Her presence made Jason flinch. "Shall we begin?" Rebecca's voice was calm, conversational, yet it cut through the room. "This meeting is to discuss discovery and explore the possibility of a settlement prior to our first case management conference. My client, Ilaris Sterling Vance, is present. For the record, Mr. Vance, you are present with your counsel, Gregory Hendricks. Is that correct?" "Yes," Greg said, his voice tight. "Good." Rebecca didn't smile. She opened her portfolio. "We'll keep this as efficient as possible. Our position, as outlined in the petition, is clear, given the overwhelming evidence of adultery, fraudulent dissipation of assets, and the conspiracy involving your family to conceal both. Ms. Sterling Vance seeks sole legal and physical custody of the minor children, child and spousal support, and 100% of the community estate. We are also pursuing civil claims against Robert and Diane Vance for intentional infliction of emotional distress and conspiracy to defraud the marital community. We believe the evidence is conclusive." Jason's control snapped. He leaned forward, his palms slapping the granite. "This is insane. Ilara, you can't just take my kids and my home. This is my house too. Those are my children." I didn't look at him. I kept my gaze level, on a point just over his shoulder. Rebecca, however, shifted ever so slightly. "Mr. Vance," she said, her tone dropping a degree in temperature, "you are here to discuss terms, not to make unfounded accusations. The house on Broadway is under contract for a cash sale, closing in 4 days. The proceeds will be held in escrow pending the court's final division. As for the children, your actions and those of your family have created an environment we deem toxic and unstable. Your petition for any form of custody will be vigorously opposed." "My actions?" Jason spat, his face flushing. "What about her actions? She kidnapped our children. She stole from our accounts. She's the one who's unstable." Greg put a hand on Jason's arm. "Jason, let me." "No." Jason shook him off, his eyes burning into me. "I want to hear from her. Look at me. Ilara, look at me and explain this hysterical overreaction." Slowly, I turned my head and met his gaze. I let him see the absolute absence of warmth, of love, of pity. I saw the man I'd shared a bed with for 12 years, and I felt nothing but a distant, profound contempt. My voice, when I spoke, was so quiet the court reporter leaned forward slightly. "Overreaction," I repeated, letting the word hang. "You planned this. You moved our money. You lied about your whereabouts. You took your entire family to celebrate the woman carrying your child. You let your mother refer to my children as practice." I didn't raise my voice. Each word was a chip of ice. "You were going to wait until after the birth, weren't you? Then you'd come to me, full of fake regret, and ask for a reasonable divorce. You'd take half of everything we built, half of my work, half of the security meant for Ava and Leo, and you'd give it to her, to them. You were going to fund your new family with the remnants of your old one. You weren't leaving us. You were planning to quietly replace us." The accuracy of it, the cool dissection of his plan, left him momentarily speechless. His mouth opened, then closed. He hadn't expected me to see it so clearly. "That's not true," he finally blustered. But the force was gone. "Sienna, she's vulnerable. The baby, it's my son. I have responsibilities. You had responsibilities here." I said. "You neglected them." You forgot Leo's birthday. You missed every one of Ava's recitals for 2 years. You looked at our brilliant, beautiful children and saw what? An inconvenience? A disappointing first draft? They're cold. The words exploded from him. Ugly and defensive. They're always judging, with their quiet little looks. Just like you. Always with your perfect house. Your perfect career. Your perfect everything. It's suffocating. Sienna needs him. She's warm. She's excited about the future. The baby is a new start. There it was. The unvarnished truth. Finally aired in this sterile room. My children and I were cold. Our life was suffocating. His mistress's need was more compelling than his family's existence. Rebecca didn't let the silence linger. Your admissions are noted for the record. Your stated preference for the expectant mother and unborn child over your wife and existing children will be paramount in our arguments for sole custody. Now, let's move to the financials. The transfers to Pacific Crest Holdings, LLC. You admit you are the beneficial owner of that entity? Greg tried to intervene. My client hasn't admitted anything. The wire transfers originated from an account he solely controls. Rebecca continued, as if Greg hadn't spoken. She slid a single sheet across the table. It was a bank statement showing the wire to Willow Creek Sanctuary. This payment for the sanctuary suite, traced from Pacific Crest Holdings, funds that originated in the joint savings account you share with Ms. Sterling Vance. You were using marital funds to finance your alternative family. Mr. Vance, that is dissipation. The court will award my client 100% of the remaining community estate as reimbursement. Your separate property, if any, will be used to satisfy child and spousal support obligations. Jason stared at the paper, the reality of the financial trap closing around him. You can't take everything, he whispered. You attempted to. I said. My voice was still quiet, but it carried. You were actively trying to take what wasn't yours. What belonged to Ava and Leo? What I built. This isn't me taking from you, Jason. This is me reclaiming what you tried to steal and ensuring you never have the means to do it to them again. They're my kids too, he shouted, reverting to the only argument he had left. Are they? I asked, tilting my head. When was the last time you asked Ava about her art? Or helped Leo with his homework? When was the last time you knew the name of their teacher? Or their best friend? Do you even know what Leo's science project was this year? The one that won the regional competition you missed? He was silent, rage and shame warring on his face. He didn't know. My clients, Greg cut in, trying to salvage something, are prepared to offer a generous settlement, joint custody, with primary residence to Ms. Sterling Vance. Of course, a fair division of assets, perhaps 60-40 in her favor, given the circumstances. We can avoid a long, ugly, public trial that will harm the children. Rebecca actually laughed. A short, dry sound. A public trial is the last thing my client fears. Greg, the narrative is rather clear. As for your generous offer, it's insulting. We are not negotiating from a position of weakness. We are stating our position. We will accept nothing less than what is in the petition. The only question is whether you wish to drag your parents and sisters through a civil suit, and whether you wish the details of your financial machinations and your warm new relationship to be entered into the public record in a contested trial. My client is prepared for either eventuality. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking on Jason. Think of it, Jason, your firm, Vance Capital. How do you think your partners and clients will react when the Chronicle runs a story with photos about the principal who siphoned marital funds to a mistress, whose family toasted the unborn heir, while his existing children were deemed lacking? The financial industry has a modicum of morality, especially where fraud and family are concerned. Your new start might find itself rather stillborn. It was a masterstroke. Rebecca had moved beyond the emotional, beyond the parental, to the one thing Jason truly cared about now: his standing, his ability to provide for his coveted new family. She was threatening the very engine of his future. The color drained completely from Jason's face. He looked at Greg, who could only give a helpless shake of his head. The law was not on their side. The optics were catastrophic. They had nothing. What do you want? Jason's voice was a hollow echo. I want you to sign the papers my attorney gives you, I said, standing up. The meeting was over. I had seen what I needed to see: the crumbling of the lie, the exposure of the small, selfish man at its center. I want you to agree to the custody arrangement, the financial division, and a non-disclosure agreement. You will instruct your parents to settle the civil claim by contributing to the children's trusts. If you do that, the public trial goes away. The details remain sealed. You get to keep your job, or what's left of it after child support is garnished. You can go play house with Sienna. You just won't be using our money, or our children's future. To do it, I walked to the door, Rebecca following a half-step behind. I paused, my hand on the knob, and looked back at him one last time. He was staring at the table, a broken figure in a too-big suit. You don't know me at all, I said, repeating the words I'd thought in this very room weeks ago. And you never knew our children. The next time you speak to, or about Ava and Leo, it will be through my attorney. And if you ever refer to my son and daughter as cold again, in any forum, I will make the rest of your life a monument to your regret. Do you understand? He didn't look up. He gave a single, jerky nod. Rebecca, and I walked out, the door clicking shut on the ruins of Jason Vance. The hallway was silent, carpeted. The sun streamed through a window at the far end. He'll sign, Rebecca said. Not a question. They all will. They have no other move. I know, I said, and I felt no triumph, only a vast, echoing finality. The reckoning was over. The rest was just paperwork. The legal battle, in the end, was not a battle at all. It was a rout, a swift, methodical dismantling conducted with the brutal efficiency of a surgeon removing a necrotic limb. Rebecca Shaw was the surgeon, and the law was her scalpel. The hearing for the temporary orders was held in a bland, wood-paneled courtroom. Judge Eleanor Ramos presided, a woman in her late 50s with a reputation for zero tolerance towards financial shenanigans and parental neglect. She had a stack of papers before her that was almost comically lopsided to Rebecca's meticulously organized binders on one side, Greg Hendricks's thinner, more desperate-looking file on the other. Jason sat with Greg. He looked worse than he had in the conference room, wearing the haunted expression of a man watching his own execution. Robert and Diane Vance were in the gallery, their faces pinched with outrage and fear. They had not been allowed to bring their own newly hired civil attorney into the family law proceeding. They were spectators to their son's immolation. Counselor Shaw, Judge Ramos began, her voice dry and impatient. You've filed an extensive motion. Make your case, but be brief. Rebecca stood, a picture of calm authority. Thank you, Your Honor. Petitioner, Ilara Sterling Vance, seeks temporary sole legal and physical custody, exclusive use of the marital residence, child and spousal support, and a freeze on all marital assets due to the respondent's ongoing, intentional dissipation of the community estate. Our evidence is straightforward and, we believe, incontrovertible. What followed was a clinical, devastating half-hour. Rebecca walked the judge through the timeline, her voice never rising. She entered Milo Jensen's declaration and the associated photographs into evidence. A court clerk set up a laptop, and the video from Willow Creek played on a monitor for the judge. The silent footage of the celebration, the frozen image of Diane's triumphant toast, hung in the air. The judge's lips thinned. Rebecca then presented the bank records, the transfers to Pacific Crest Holdings, the wire to Willow Creek Sanctuary. A new document, obtained through the forensic accountant, was the final nail. a bank statement for Pacific Crest Holdings showing a series of payments to a Sienna Delaney for rent on an apartment in Sausalito, for a luxury sedan lease, 4 credit card bills. As you can see, Your Honor, Rebecca said, her tone implying the conclusion was obvious to a child. Mr. Vance has been systematically diverting community funds, earned during the marriage, to fund a separate life and family with his paramour. This is textbook dissipation. He has demonstrated a reckless disregard for the financial welfare of his legal wife and children. Furthermore, the conspiracy with his parents and sisters to conceal this activity, and their active celebration of the adultery and impending birth creates an environment of profound toxicity and instability for the minor children. Ava and Leo. The children themselves have expressed fear and confusion regarding their father's absence and clear preference for the unborn child. Greg Hendricks stood to object, to offer some defense. He was a corporate lawyer, and it showed. He stammered about marital difficulties, about 2 sides to every story, about Jason's deep love for his children. He presented a few flimsy exhibits. Photos of Jason with the kids from years ago. A testimonial from a neighbor saying Jason was a nice guy. It was like bringing a butter knife to a thermonuclear exchange. Judge Ramos listened, her expression growing stonier by the minute. When Greg finished, she fixed Jason with a gaze that could have frozen the bay outside. Mr. Vance, she said, her voice low, your counsel speaks of love. I see evidence of calculation. I see evidence of deceit. I see you financing one family at the direct expense of another. The declaration from the private investigator states, your children were aware of your indifference. They noticed your absence. They felt your disregard. Do you dispute that? Jason opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at his parents, who stared back, paralyzed. He looked at Greg, who gave a minuscule, helpless shrug. Your Honor, I provided for them. Jason finally choked out. You provided money, which you then stole back to give to another woman. Judge Ramos corrected, her voice like shattering glass. Providing is more than a paycheck. It is presence. It is emotional security. You failed on all counts. The evidence of dissipation is overwhelming. Your conduct is a gross violation of your fiduciary duty to the marital community. She turned her attention to Robert and Diane in the gallery. And as for the grandparents, your documented behavior, celebrating the real grandson while your existing grandchildren are sidelined, is beneath contempt. This court is not in the business of policing family sentiments. But when those sentiments translate into active participation in fraud and emotional cruelty, it becomes relevant. It speaks to the ecosystem in which these children would be forced to exist if their father had any custody. Diane Vance made a small, gasping sound. Robert put a hand on her arm, his own face ashen. Judge Ramos didn't hesitate. She issued her rulings in a clear, clipped tone, her pen scratching across the orders. Temporary sole legal and physical custody to Alara. Supervised visitation for Jason, limited to 2 hours every other Sunday at a court-approved family center. He was to have no contact with the children outside of those visits. He was to undergo a psychological evaluation and complete a co-parenting class, though the co-parenting part seemed a grim joke, before even requesting a modification. All marital assets remained frozen. Jason was ordered to pay pendant light child support at the highest guideline level, based on his previous year's income, plus temporary spousal support. The funds were to be garnished directly from his wages. The house sale was approved, proceeds to be held in escrow. Finally, she granted Rebecca's request for a Harris asterisk order, requiring Jason to pay 100% of my attorney's fees, given the intentional and fraudulent nature of his conduct which necessitated this litigation. It was a total, unmitigated legal annihilation. Greg Hendricks looked ill. Jason seemed to shrink into his suit, a man erased by the stroke of a pen. As we stood to leave, Rebecca leaned over to Greg. The civil suit against the parents proceeds in 30 days unless we have a settlement agreement and a wire to the children's trusts. The number is in the petition. My client is feeling merciful, so we'll only take 90% of what we asked for. Have a good day. Greg. The final settlement negotiations, conducted over the following weeks via terse emails and one more miserable conference call with Jason and his new, actually competent family law attorney, were a formality. He had no leverage. The temporary orders foreshadowed the final judgment. Fighting would only pile on more legal fees he'd have to pay and drag his parents through a public, humiliating civil trial. He signed. The final judgment of dissolution echoed the temporary orders, but made them permanent. I was awarded sole legal and physical custody. The supervised visitation schedule was locked in for a minimum of 2 years. The frozen assets were formally divided. I received 100% of the remaining community estate as reimbursement for the dissipated funds. This included my half of the proceeds from the Pacific Heights house, plus a lump sum payment from Jason's half, which was calculated to zero after deductions for the money he'd stolen. His separate property did a modest stock portfolio, and his 401k were tapped to fulfill the equalization payment and to secure the spousal and child support obligations, which were set at a crushing level. The court also awarded me a percentage of his future bonuses for the next decade. Robert and Diane Vance, to avoid the civil trial, settled. They wrote a check for a sum that made even Rebecca raise an appreciative eyebrow. It was wired directly into the irrevocable educational trusts for Ava and Leo. The message was clear. Their money would go to the grandchildren they'd scorned, funding the futures of the children they deemed not real. The poetic justice was exquisite. The final blow, however, the one that truly salted the earth, did not come from a courtroom. It came from my son. A few days after the judgment was entered, Leo came into the living room of our new, permanent home, gorgeous, light-filled modern house in Presidio Heights that I'd bought outright with the proceeds from the old one and a significant chunk of my own savings. He held his tablet, his expression serious. "Mom, you need to see this." "What is it, sweetie?" "I did some digging. After the stuff with the bank accounts, I found her. Sienna. She has public social media. Or, she had. She set a lot of it to private after the court stuff started, but not before." He handed me the tablet. It was an Instagram page. The username was something vapid and sunny. The profile picture was a professionally taken maternity shot. Sienna, glowing, in a field of flowers, her hands cradling her belly. The bio read, "Living my best life, building my forever. Baby boy coming soon. Blue heart blessed." Leo had scrolled back. The feed was a nauseating catalog of the life Jason had been building with our money. There were photos of the Sausalito apartment with its water view, a shot of the steering wheel of the leased Mercedes, a series of pictures from what looked like a lavish baby shower held at a winery, and there, in several photos, was my former family, Diane, smiling as she held up a tiny onesie that said, "Grandma's favorite." Maya and Chloe posing with Sienna. Jason, his face softer than I'd seen in years, his hand on her stomach in a near-identical pose to the one from the PI's video. The captions were a masterclass in unwitting self-incrimination. My incredible in-laws threw me the most amazing shower, feeling so loved and supported. This baby is already so spoiled. My love and my heart. Can't wait to meet our little man and start our adventure as a family of 3, this one tagged Jason. When your man surprises you with a weekend in Napa, before the baby comes smiling face with hearts, he's the best. The most recent post, dated just after the settlement was finalized, was a close-up of the baby's hand gripping an adult finger. The caption, "He's here, our perfect little miracle. Jackson Michael, 8 pounds 6 ounces of pure love. So grateful for my strong, supportive partner at Jason Vance." The Vance legacy continues. Jackson Michael. They'd given him a near-identical name to Jason. The Vance legacy. My stomach turned. But that wasn't the point. I looked at Leo. You found this. Why show me now? It's over. He shrugged, a flicker of his old, quiet anger in his eyes. It's not over for them. They think they won. They're posting like nothing happened. Like they didn't try to steal from us. Like Dad didn't abandon us. He took a deep breath. I didn't do anything. But I saved the links, the pictures, the captions, all of it. In case you, I don't know, in case you needed it. I looked at my son, this quiet, brilliant boy who saw patterns in code and in human deceit with equal clarity. He wasn't asking for revenge. He was providing intelligence. He was on Team Sterling. I hugged him tightly. Thank you. Leo, this is good to know. I did nothing with the information immediately. Public shaming was beneath me, and Rebecca would have vetoed it as a potential legal complication. But the knowledge was power. It was a map of their delusion. The fallout, however, had its own organic momentum. The Vance name, once respectable in certain Marin and financial circles, was now mud. The details of the case, while sealed, had a way of leaking in whispers. The fact that Jason had lost custody completely, that he'd been ordered to pay enormous support, that his parents had settled a civil suit. IT all painted a clear, damning picture. People in his firm talked. Clients with traditional values got nervous. He wasn't fired outright. The legal risk was too high, but the partnership track he'd been on evaporated. He was sidelined. His bonuses, what was left of them after garnishment, minimal. I heard through the merciless San Francisco gossip mill that Robert and Diane had put their Seacliff house on the market, downsizing to a condo in the city. The story was they wanted to be closer to their new grandson. The truth, everyone knew, was the financial hit from the settlement and the social ostracism. Their circle, built on a foundation of appearances, had judged them and found them wanting. As for me, I closed the folder, literally and figuratively. The legal war was won. The financial security of my children was ironclad. The house that had been a stage set for a lie was gone, replaced by a home that was truly mine, filled with light and the quiet, happy sounds of my children thriving. The scorched earth policy had worked. Nothing of the life Jason Vance had tried to build over the ashes of ours remained standing. The landscape was barren for him. For us, it was finally clear, ready for something new to grow. Months later, the quality of the silence in the house was different. It wasn't the hollow, waiting silence of the Pacific Heights colonial. It was a quiet, punctuated by the soft scratch of a pencil on paper, the rhythmic click-clack of a keyboard, the distant hum of the city from our hill in Presidio Heights. It was the sound of peace, of a life reclaimed. I stood at the large kitchen island, a space I designed for utility and light, and poured coffee. Morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating a bowl of fresh fruit and Ava's sketchbook, left open to a stunning, intricate drawing of the Golden Gate Bridge from an impossible, bird's-eye perspective. She's getting scary good. A voice said. Leo padded into the kitchen, his hair sleep-tousled, already dressed. At 8 going on 9, he carried himself with a new, unself-conscious confidence. The tension that used to tighten his small shoulders when his father was home was gone. She is, I agreed, sliding a glass of orange juice across to him. And you? Did the simulation finish running? His eyes lit up. Yeah, the new stabilization algorithm works. I tweaked the code based on the wind shear data from the Sterling Academy Observatory. It's 97% effective in simulated gusts up to 50 knots. Mr. Hendricks says I can present it at the Junior Innovators Conference in the fall. That's incredible. Leo, I'm so proud of you. The words were the same, but the feeling behind them was now untainted. Pure. I could be proud without the silent, aching footnote of, and your father should be here to see this. Ava floated in next, her movements graceful. She went straight to the coffee machine, a recent, negotiated addition to her morning routine. Decaf. With a splash of cream, I finished the proposal. She announced, without preamble, for the community center mural? I asked. Yes. I met with the director online yesterday. She loved the concept, the geometry of home. It's about the shapes that make us feel safe and connected, not just squares and triangles, but the shape of a hug, the curve of a shared smile. She spoke with an artist's conviction that was far beyond her years. She said, if the committee approves, I can start after summer session ends. They'd pay me a stipend. My heart swelled. This was their life now, not defined by absence, but propelled by their own formidable talents. The Sterling Academy in Connecticut had been a salvation. The summer program had given them a soft landing. A cohort of peers who knew nothing of the Vance family drama. They'd thrived in the structured, intellectually vibrant environment. They'd come back to San Francisco for the holidays taller, brighter, full of stories about astrophysics clubs and studio art intensives. The physical distance had been a bomb. The 3,000 miles between them and the lingering ghost of their father was the best investment I'd ever made. A stipend, Leo said, impressed. You're a professional. Almost. Ava smiled. A real, easy smile. I have to get the design approved first. And Mom has to sign off. Since I'm a minor, I'll sign anything that doesn't involve permanent tattoos or dropping out of school. I said, earning a laugh. This was our new normal. Team Sterling, operational and thriving. The legal and financial machinery Rebecca had set in motion churned on in the background. A distant, automated hum. The child support landed in the dedicated account, like clockwork. The quarterly reports from the children's trusts showed healthy, sober growth. Jason's supervised visits continued. A bleak, bi-monthly chore the children endured with the detached politeness of attendees at a tedious seminar. They'd report back with clinical brevity. He asked about school. I told him it was fine. He showed me a picture on his phone of the baby, Jackson. Leo had said this last time. His voice flat. He's the baby. He drooled. Dad looked tired. Ava's report was even shorter. He tried to talk about my art. He used words like creative and colorful. He doesn't know any of the right words. It was awkward. He asked if I was angry. I said I was busy. The supervisor ended the session early. There was no fury in them anymore, just a profound, settled indifference. It was the final, most complete rejection. He was no longer a villain in their story. He was a minor, inconvenient character who'd long since left the stage. My own life had found a new center of gravity. Sterling Interiors was booming. The notoriety of my divorce, whispered about in certain circles, had paradoxically brought in a wave of new clients, mostly women, who'd heard variations of the story and sought me out not just for my taste, but for my perceived toughness. I'd rebranded slightly, focusing on designing resilient spaces for modern lives. It was a hit, but my real project, the one that filled my evenings and weekends, was not for a client. It was for me. After closing on the Presidio Heights house, I'd used a portion of the settlement money to buy a small, derelict craftsman bungalow in No Valley. It was a wreck. Sagging porch, overgrown yard, interior gutted by some flipper who'd run out of cash. To anyone else, it was a money pit. To me, it was a blank slate, a physical metaphor I could work with my hands. I was renovating it myself. Well, not entirely myself. I'd hired skeptical but excellent contractor, Ben, who was used to working for crazy artists and tech millionaires with whims. But I was the foreman, the designer, the client. I picked up a sledgehammer and took down the fake, cheap drywall that had closed in the original living room. I spent evenings sanding century-old floorboards back to life, the rasp of the sander a meditation. I chose fixtures not for resale value, but for the sheer, personal joy of them, unlacquered brass that would patina, deep green kitchen cabinets, hand-glazed zellige tile for the bathroom. One afternoon, Ava and Leo came to the site after their Saturday coding and art workshops. They found me in what would be the kitchen, covered in a fine layer of dust, arguing with Ben about the placement of a skylight. "Mom, you're a mess," Ava said, grinning. She loved seeing me like this, disheveled, purposeful, wielding a tape measure like a weapon. "It's a good mess," I said, wiping my forehead with the back of my wrist. "What do you think? Skylight over the island, or shifted 2 feet toward the garden?" Leo walked to the center of the room, squinting up at the roof beams. "Over the island, maximum light for food prep and homework. The garden gets light from the French doors. It's a more efficient distribution." Ben chuckled. "Kid's got a point. All right, boss. Over the island it is." Later, as we ate pizza sitting on the subfloor, the setting sun painting the raw stud walls gold, Ava asked, "Why this house?" "Mom, our house is perfect. Why take on this project?" She didn't say disaster, but it was implied. I looked around at the skeletal frame, the exposed plumbing, the piles of lumber. It was chaos, but it was an honest chaos. "Our house is finished. It's beautiful. It's ours. This," I gestured with a slice of pizza. "This is for the process. It's about making something from scratch, making it solid, no shortcuts, no fake finishes. Every nail, every wire, every tile is a choice I get to make. It's the opposite of what my life was before, the opposite of a facade." Leo nodded, understanding in his eyes. "You're debugging it, rewriting the code." "Exactly," I said, smiling at him. "And when it's done, maybe we'll rent it out, or maybe I'll sell it to a nice family, or maybe I'll just keep it, to remind myself I can build things, strong things." That night, back in our finished, serene home, the kids were in their rooms. Ava video chatting with a friend from Sterling about mural techniques. Leo running another simulation. I sat at my desk in the study, the city lights twinkling below. The legal files were archived. The financial statements were orderly. The war was over. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A chill, ancient and faint, touched my spine. I opened it. "It's Sienna. I know I shouldn't be contacting you. I heard what happened. With Jason's job. They demoted him. The support payments are killing us. We're losing the apartment. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't know. Not really. He said you were cold. That you had your own life. He said it was amicable. I'm so sorry." I stared at the words. The raw, panicky fear in them was palpable. The amicable lie was the final, pathetic stitch in Jason's tapestry of deceit. I felt a distant pang, not for her, but for the sheer, stupid waste of it all. She'd bought the fantasy, and now the bill had come due, and it was far higher than she'd ever imagined. I didn't respond. What was there to say? "You reap what you sow" was true, but cruel. I told you so as beneath me. Any response would be an engagement, a thread pulled, and I had painstakingly unraveled myself from that tapestry. Instead, I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do in months. I opened the folder Leo had made, the one with the links to Sienna's social media. I scrolled. The triumphant posts had slowed, then stopped abruptly around the time of the final settlement. The last photo was of baby Jackson, maybe 4 months old. No caption. Then, nothing. The digital ghost of a dream that had died. I closed the folder and deleted it. Then I blocked the number that had texted me. There was no victory in their downfall, only a quiet, solemn acknowledgement of cause and effect. He had chosen to build his new foundation on the quicksand of lies and stolen security. It was only ever going to swallow him whole. I got up and walked down the hall. I pushed open Leo's door. He was asleep, his tablet dark on the nightstand. I did the same for Ava. She was asleep with a book on her chest. I removed it, marked the page, and set it aside, standing in the hallway between their rooms. In the home I had built for us, I felt it. Not happiness, that was too fleeting a word. It was something deeper, more durable. It was peace. It was security. It was the quiet, ferocious joy of a hard-won sovereignty. The past was a closed country. The present was this quiet hallway, these sleeping children, this solid roof over our heads. The future was a craftsman bungalow waiting for its skylight, a community center mural, a rocket simulation stable against 50-knot winds. I had not just survived. I had excavated myself from the ruins and laid, board by board, nail by nail, a new foundation, and it was unshakable. The craftsman bungalow on Ashbury Street was no longer a skeleton. It had skin, a heartbeat, a soul. The last 6 months of sweat, sawdust, and stubborn decisions had transformed the wreck into something that felt both timeless and utterly new. I stood in the center of the living room, the original fir floors glowing with a deep honeyed warmth, the smell of citrus oil and fresh paint hanging in the air. Sunlight streamed through the meticulously restored divided light windows, catching dust motes that danced like tiny celebrations. The front door, solid oak with beveled glass, stood open to the late summer afternoon. A truck was backing into the driveway, carrying the final piece, a custom-made porch swing. I designed it myself, wide enough for 3, with deep, inviting cushions and a durable outdoor linen. My contractor, Ben, wiped his hands on his jeans, coming to stand beside me. He was a man of few words, but his approval was in the satisfied tilt of his head. Place turned out all right, boss. It did. I agreed. A simple statement that held volumes. It was more than all right. It was a testament. Every salvaged original detail, every carefully chosen modern fixture, spoke of respect for what was and a deliberate choice for what could be. Kids get in today? He asked, knowing the timeline. Their flight from Connecticut lands at 4. They've been video calling me nightly, demanding progress reports. Leo has a spreadsheet of the smart home integration he wants to optimize. Ava has already claimed a wall in the sunroom for a future mural. Ben chuckled. There's something else. You did good, Elara. With them. With this. He gestured at the house. Most clients, they just want a pretty flip. You built a home. Even if you're going to sell it, I'm not selling it, I said, the decision cementing itself as I spoke the words aloud. I'd been leaning towards it for weeks. I'm keeping it, renting it out, maybe, to a carefully vetted tenant. But it's staying in the family, a physical asset, one I built. He nodded, understanding the distinction. Smart, a different kind of equity. He checked his watch. Well, the swing's here. I'll get the boys to hang it. You go get your team. Driving to SFO, the city blurring past. I felt a lightness I hadn't known in years. The legal battles were a closed file. The financial threats were neutralized. The anger had burned off, leaving this clear, calm space. I wasn't just moving on. I had arrived somewhere new. I spotted them the moment they came through security at Terminal 2. Ava, now 11, seemed to have gained inches, her posture straight and confident, an artist's satchel slung across her body. Leo, 9, walked beside her, his eyes scanning the crowd with a familiar, analytical focus, a sleek, new laptop case in hand. Then they saw me, and the composed young travelers vanished, replaced by my kids, grinning and waving. Mom, they descended on me in a tangle of limbs and backpacks. The familiar, wonderful scent of them, airplane air, and childhood, filling my senses. Welcome home. You too. I hugged them fiercely. How was the flight? How was the last week of camp? Amazing, Leo said, his words tumbling out in a rush as we walked to baggage claim. The observatory got time on the Hubble data feed for a student project. We were analyzing exoplanet atmospheres. I think I found an anomaly in the spectroscopic data for K2-18b. I need to run more models. and I finished the large-scale canvas for the end of summer show. Ava interjected, her eyes shining. It's called Fault Lines. It's about pressure creating beauty instead of destruction. The art director said it was emotionally mature, whatever that means. He offered to help me get it into a gallery in New Haven this fall. We collected their bags. The conversation a happy, overlapping duet about friends, teachers, projects, the new life they were crafting for themselves 3,000 miles away. There was no hesitation, no looking back. The past was another country. In the car, heading back into the city, Ava grew quiet for a moment, looking out at the familiar hills. So, the house is really done? The last nail is being hammered in as we speak. Literally, a porch swing. Can we see it? Before we go home, Leo asked from the back seat. That's the plan. When we pulled up to the Ashbury Street bungalow, the swing was already hanging. A perfect, welcoming comma on the freshly painted porch. The kids tumbled out of the car. Wow, Ava breathed, taking in the crisp white trim, the lush native plants in the garden, the way the house now looked invited, settled into the land. It's so friendly. Leo was already on the porch, testing the swing's chains. Sturdy, good weight distribution. He Saturday pushing off gently. Optimal relaxation, geometry. I unlocked the front door. Come on in. They walked into the living room and stopped. For a long moment, they just looked. They saw the built-in bookshelves I'd designed, the fireplace I'd retiled with antique Moroccan pieces, the way the light fell. They saw the kitchen with its green cabinets and brass hardware, the sunroom beyond filled with light. It doesn't look like your other work, Mom, Ava said softly, walking over to run a hand along the quartz countertop. It's warmer. It's not for a client. I said, it's just for the house, for the idea of it. Leo had wandered to the back French doors, looking out at the small, landscaped yard. It's efficient, cohesive. It makes sense. From him, it was the highest praise. We ended up on the porch swing as the afternoon faded into a soft, golden evening. The three of us fit perfectly. We swung gently, the chains creaking a peaceful rhythm. Dad called the school. Ava said, out of nowhere. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. The swing didn't stop. My breath didn't hitch. Oh, last week, he asked to speak to me. The headmaster's office patched him through. He said he wanted to wish me a happy early birthday, that he missed me. She picked at a thread on her jeans. He sounded small. What did you say? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I said thank you. I told him I was busy with my art show and that I was happy. Then I said I had to go to a geology tutorial, which was true. She looked at me. Was that okay? I wasn't mean. I just didn't have anything else to say. I put my arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. It was perfect. Sweetie, you were honest and polite. That's all anyone can ask for. He sent an email to my student account. Leo added, his voice monotone, as if reporting a software bug, a link to an article about a new SpaceX launch. He wrote, thought you might find this interesting. I didn't reply. The article was 6 months old, and it was about payload economics, not propulsion. He didn't read it. There it was, the final, quiet truth. Their father was now a stranger, trying to connect with a language he'd never bothered to learn. His attempts were like weak radio signals from a distant star, full of static and irrelevance. The children weren't angry. They were finished. You don't have to reply to emails you don't want to. I said, you get to set the terms of your piece. Both of you. We know, Ava said, leaning her head on my shoulder. It's just sad. For him, not for us. We swung in silence for a while, listening to the neighborhood sounds. A dog barking, a distant lawnmower, the leaves rustling. Are you ever going to forgive him? Leo asked, the question so direct. So Leo, I thought about it. I thought about the betrayal, the theft, the cruelty. I thought about the video, the toast, the planned obliteration of our security. Then I thought about this porch, this swing, these two incredible humans beside me, the house behind us, solid and true. Forgiveness isn't a contract you sign with someone who hurt you, I said slowly, choosing my words with care. It's a peace treaty you make with yourself, so you can stop carrying their baggage. I've made my peace. What he did is part of our history, but it's not the title of our story anymore. Our story is the three of us. It's this house. It's your murals and your rockets. So, in a way, I've forgiven the situation enough to let it go. But I'll never give him the power to matter to me again. And that's a different, healthier thing. Ava nodded, understanding, like we archived the old files. They're on the drive if we ever need to check something. But the system doesn't run on them anymore. I smiled, pressing a kiss to her hair. Exactly like that. Later, after we'd had dinner at our favorite neighborhood Italian place and returned to our Presidio Heights home, the kids retreated to their rooms to unpack and reconnect with local friends online. I went to my study. There was one last piece of mail I'd been avoiding. A thick, creamy envelope, handwritten address. The return label read Robert Diane Vance. I'd known it was coming. Rebecca had forwarded me the alert from the court monitoring service. Jason Michael Vance had filed petition to modify the divorce decree, specifically the child support and spousal support orders, citing material change in circumstances, namely, his demotion and reduced income. It was a Hail Mary pass, doomed to fail. The courts rarely reduced support obligations born of misconduct, and he'd have to prove his underemployment wasn't voluntary. Rebecca's memo was succinct. He'll lose, expensively. Your response? I hadn't responded yet. I picked up the Vance envelope now and slid it open. It was not, as I'd half expected, a plea for mercy. It was a wedding invitation. Robert and Diane Vance request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their son, Jason Michael Vance, to Sienna Marie Delaney, on Saturday, the 17th of October. The venue was a modest winery in Sonoma. The card was expensive. The wording was traditional, formal, a desperate attempt to project normalcy. Stiff. I could imagine Diane meticulously choosing the font, agonizing over the wording, trying to create a relic of the family prestige they had squandered. A second, smaller note card was enclosed. In Diane's looping, frantic script, Elara, I am writing this against the advice of everyone. I know we have no right to ask you for anything, but for the sake of the children, and for the sake of some future where they might know their brother, I am begging you to consider not opposing Jason's petition. He is struggling. We are all struggling. This wedding is a chance for him to start properly, to build a stable home for his son. The financial burden is crushing them before they even begin. Can you find it in your heart to allow them this one chance? You have won. You have everything. Can you not be magnanimous in victory? Diane. I read it twice. The audacity was breathtaking, yet utterly predictable. For the sake of the children, their brother, a stable home, magnanimous, in victory, the same manipulative language, just a different flavor. Once it was dismissal, now it was a plea. The core was the same, an expectation that I should arrange my life and my children's security for their comfort. I felt no anger, only a profound, weary clarity. I picked up my phone and called Rebecca. It was after hours, but she answered on the second ring. Elara, I was just reviewing the motion to dismiss the modification petition. It's brutal. I think you'll like it. Make it more brutal, I said, my voice even, and file a countermotion. For sanctions, he's bringing a frivolous action intended to harass and cause unnecessary delay. Use his wedding invitation as exhibit A to evidence that his priority is funding a new marital partnership, not demonstrating an inability to pay. He wants to reduce support to free up cash for a wedding and a new household. Argue that. There was a beat of appreciative silence on the line. Cold. I love it. It'll work. 2. The judge will see it as a continuation of the same pattern. It might get him slapped with paying all our fees for this exercise. 2. Good. I looked at the wedding invitation, at Diane's pleading note, and, Rebecca, draw up a simple, one-way confidentiality addendum in exchange for a one-time, very modest reduction in spousal support. Temporary. For 2 years only. And with a balloon payment at the end, they all sign it. Jason, Sienna, Robert, Diane. They agree never to contact me or the children directly again. No letters, no emails, no calls to schools. Any future communication goes through you. Any violation voids the reduction and reinstates the original amount plus penalties. You're buying their silence, Rebecca said, understanding immediately, and ensuring they can't use Jackson as a guilt lever in the future. It's smart. The reduction will be a pittance to you, but it'll feel like a lifeline to them. They'll sign. I know they will. They were bargainers. They understood transactions. This was a transaction, a small amount of money in exchange for the permanent removal of their presence from our lives. It was the best money I would ever spend. Consider it done. I'll have drafts tomorrow. She paused. You're okay? I've never been better, I said, and meant it. I'm just cleaning up the last of the debris. I hung up. I picked up the wedding invitation and Diane's note. I didn't rip them up. I walked to the fireplace in the study, a decorative gas one, never used. I turned it on. A neat, blue flame sprang to life. I held the corner of the invitation to it, watched the thick cardstock blacken, curl, and ignite. I dropped it into the firebox. I did the same with the note, the plea, the performance, the last ghost of their expectations, dissolved into ash in seconds. I turned off the fire. I walked through the quiet house. I checked on Leo. He was asleep, his glasses still on, a textbook on renewable energy open on his chest. I removed the glasses, closed the book. I checked on Ava. She was awake, reading with her book light. Everything okay, Mom? She whispered. Everything's perfect. I whispered back. Go to sleep. My brilliant artist. Love you. Love you more. I went to my bedroom, but I wasn't tired. I went to the large window that looked out over the dark expanse of the Presidio, towards the golden threads of the bridge lights. I thought about the Ashbury Street bungalow, now complete. I thought about the last nail. Ben had let me drive it in. A final, symbolic act. The solid thunk of the hammer, the way the nail sank flush with the wood, securing the last piece of trim. That was it. The last nail in the coffin of the old life. The first nail in the frame of a life built entirely on my own terms. I had not just survived the wreckage. I had salvaged the strongest timbers and used them to build something new. I had not just protected my children. I had helped them grow into people so strong, so self-aware, that their father's weakness could no longer touch them. The story of Alara and Jason Vance was over. Its final papers filed. Its last embers cooled to ash. The story of Alara Sterling, of Ava and Leo, of Team Sterling, that story was just beginning. And I had built the foundation for it myself, board by board, nail by nail, and it was absolutely, unshakably sound.